Hi, Bob. How's life?
Oh, it's just fine. It's nice and supposed to have rain here in Houston area.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a rainy week.
Well, I think I told you on the phone we need some of that rain out here. It's been really, really dry. We've got a good audience here for you.
Oh, good.
We'll start in just a minute. You're right on time too. Thank you.
Down on the chat, I have a 1.
Click on that. It just means that it just means that you need to open up your chat window a little bit more, and when you click on them, you'll see the new messages that are coming in.
You can set the display name in Zoom on a per session basis.
Yeah, that was probably intended for me.
There are a lot of Zoom experts on here. People use this all the time, and so they're freely giving us hints on how to.
Oh, there's Jay Bromley.
Let's just say there have been articles in the American Bar Association Journal about people who have shown up in Zoom court meetings with very inappropriate screen names.
That's right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yes. You got to watch that.
We've had several Zoom meetings, but I've never had any
names I can't repeat. They may be appropriate for
Yeah, I hear you.
For conversations with your buds, but not in federal court.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and then share again. So I'm going to do one thing. Okay, we're good to go.
Can you stop the sharing for a minute and get 2 things for me?
Sure, what's that?
No.
Eric,
let's see. I just muted him. Okay, everybody everybody mute yourself, or I will. I think it's the witching hour. Here we go. So Bob, welcome. Welcome to the 72nd International DX Convention as our first speaker here on Sunday morning. And just before we get started, I wanted to let everybody know that I did a little bit of research on Bob. And Bob, this is actually taken right from your own QRZ.com profile. So it's really nice to know that you've been in the hobby over 60 years now. And I just picked up on this one phrase I thought was really revealing. That you like to repair things down to the component. That's your specialty. Well, that just means I think it's pretty obvious that you have the knack, right? You must have the knack.
Oh yeah.
You do. Yeah. And I think, and here, I think this is probably illustrative of why.
I'm worried about little Dilbert. He's not like other kids.
What do you mean?
Yesterday, I left him alone for a minute, and he disassembled the TV, our clock, and the stereo.
That's perfectly normal. Kids take things apart.
Oh. The part that worries me is he used the components to build a ham radio set.
Oh, dear.
Is that bad?
Normally, I'd want to run an EEG on him, but the machine isn't working. It's worse than I feared.
What is it?
I'm afraid your son has the knack.
The knack?
The knack. It's a rare condition characterized by an extreme intuition about all things mechanical and electrical, and utter social ineptitude.
Can he lead a normal life?
No. He'll be an engineer. There.
What do you think, Bob? Does that summarize it?
One of my daughters got me a T-shirt that says, "Trust me, I'm an engineer."
Well, we do trust you, and I'm gonna stop sharing right now because the floor is yours. Take over.
Well, first I got to say good morning, Eric. How are you, Eric Schwartz? I haven't seen you in a long time. I guess you can't talk back to me. Oh, good. You can't talk back to me.
Not yet.
I don't know how I got on here, guys, good morning.
I'm going to watch your presentation. I imagine you have one later, or did you do one?
Yeah,
yet?
I think about 10 o'clock here. I didn't realize I'd be popping up here. I'm just still watching I wanted to see how it was working. So
It's okay.
I'll let you get going.
Just hang out. Just hang out, Eric. Hang out. You can always hang
Say
out.
hi to your wife for my wife and I. She was
Will
really
do.
a lady. We met her in Friedrichshafen. Okay, well, we have the Expert Linears. And right now we're selling the 1.3K.
Do you have a screen? Do you have a presentation screen to share with us?
No,
Oh, okay.
I've got some videos, but I
That's-
didn't make a PowerPoint. I mean, I have a PowerPoint, but I just wanted to more or less explain what we have for sale and then go into these demonstrations.
Go right ahead.
Okay. We have the 1.3K, the 1.5K, and the 2K that we're using for selling, or that we're selling right now and that we're producing. Anyway, I'm going to show you some demos of them at first. And they're, by the way, they are made by Lance Rumfield, WD5X. And so I need to hit the share and go to that. Okay. Post screen has been disabled.
Hold on a second. And let me give you that one hint. When you click the green button, when it says share, it'll open up an intermediate screen for you.
So far, oh, there we go.
Okay, in the lower left corner, click the little
That's right. I remember.
check box, right, on audio, and then your stuff will come through loud and clear.
I have to go to, why can't I find my presentations? I found them. Yes. Oh, files. Well, I had them yesterday. They should be on my laptop. Desktop.
I'm sure they're there.
Well, and they
Open the
were.
presentation.
What?
Open the presentation,
Where's that?
wherever it is on your machine.
Well, we don't know how he labeled it, but
Yesterday, I had them right here. Whenever we went through and tested. Okay, so I need to do this and this. And I can't.
okay. You're showing your screen.
Well, but this is not what I'm wanting. Just a second.
Take your time.
Okay, here we go.
There, okay.
All right. Where is it they use this first? Here we go. Here's Lance Rumfield. And it will be going.
Hello.
Okay,
This is
that's very good. It's coming through nicely.
Today I will be demonstrating the Expert Linears 1.5 KA linear amplifier, its capabilities and functionalities. I think you'll find this to be a very interesting presentation. This unit is rated from 160 to 6 meters. It does full legal power, 1500 watts. It can be powered off of any AC voltage from 100 volts to 255 volts, and it requires nothing more than changing the plug to get it on the air. It's fantastic for a shack. It has dual banks of memories for remembering configuration, so it can be used both in the shack and at field day. And I think you'll find it to be a remarkable product in that it is a full legal limit amplifier. It has a built-in legal limit tuner and a power supply, all in a 22-pound package, meaning you can literally pick it up with one finger. I hope you enjoy the presentation. For today's presentation, we'll start by looking at the front panel of the Expert 1.5 KA amplifier. And for today's demonstration, we'll be using an ICOM IC7000 as the exciter. It is connected to input number 1, and it has a cat cable, which is connected to the cat cable number 1. And the easiest way to see that is when you power it off, the radio. The amplifier follows the radio, which is a very handy feature. And then we'll turn it back on. So one button brings everything on and off. You don't have to turn 2 or 3 different appliances on and off to get your shack ready to go. Now, let's look at the buttons on the right-hand side. In the upper right corner is an on button, and below that an off. That's if you're not using the auto on-off feature. Below that is the operate position, which is when the amplifier is online, or in the out of operate position, the exciter power passes straight through the amplifier. The power switch next to the operate switch is actually, or button, is actually where you set the different ranges of output power on the amplifier. It has 3 ranges: low, medium or mid, and max. We'll put that back on low for now. Now, above that is the display button, which is used to bring up the different menus that you may need for configuring the amplifier to the radio or to your antenna system. Next to the display button, to the left side, is the cat button, and that's where you select what type of radio you're connecting the amplifier to, because it needs to be able to speak the same language, whether it's ICOM, Kenwood, Yaesu, or whatever. Below the cat button is the set button. That's basically where you confirm the changes that you make. And then the upper 2 buttons to the middle and the left over here are for navigating through the menus. On the left-hand side, you'll notice we have an input button. That's where you would manually choose which input you were using, either input 1 or input 2. The antenna button, which is where you choose which of the 4 antennas you will use that are available. Today we'll do everything on antenna 1, and if you'll notice there's a B by the 1. The B means bypass. Since we're using a dummy load, we're not going to have the tuner in play, but because we've got a 50 ohm load. Below that is the 2 different band position switches, left and right. So if you need to manually select the bands, in this case we won't need to, because as you change the band switch on the radio, information follows through the cat cable to change the band on the amplifier. And then finally, well, not finally, but there's a tune button. That's where you set up the tuner for following sub-bands of each band. I'll explain that here in just a minute. Just above that are the manual selections if you want to manually set up your inductance or your capacitance. Back to the sub-bands. Through the cat cable, the transceiver is passing frequency information, and it's also passing band information, as you witnessed the band information being passed. And as that happens, the tuner follows whatever position the exciter is in while it's in receive mode. There's a couple of advantages to that. The first one being that means your antenna is always peaked for receiving the minute you dial up to wherever you want to receive. And secondly, it means that the tuner doesn't have to ratchet, as you've heard other auto tuners do, under RF load, which is very, very good in that it saves wear and tear on the tuner. Great move. And it does that, again, through the cat cable. I can't stress the importance of the cat cable. You definitely want to use it if you have one available or if you can get one. The next issue that I'd like to talk about, this same issue with the cat cable, the communications is not always from the exciter to the amplifier. I said there were 3 different output levels: low, medium, and high. As you'll witness in a few minutes, if you set it on low power, that's the 500 watt level, and you key your mic, the amplifier will tell the exciter, only give me enough power to get close to 500 watts. Put it on mid power, it'll tell the exciter, only give me enough power to get to 1,000 watts. And if you put it on high power, it will tell you to give it enough power to go to 1,500 watts. This is much different than your traditional amplifiers where you have to basically, once you get the amp peaked and tuned and ready to go, you vary your drive level to vary your output. Here, the amplifier is actually telling the exciter how much drive to give it. So let's take a look and let's go on to actually doing some RF, running some RF through this amplifier. Right now we are offline, and if I key the microphone, which I've got over here to the lower right, it's telling us that the exciter is putting out about 93 watts, and our dummy load's not perfect. It's a 1.08, but we can sure accept that. All right, we're in the low power mode. If I hit the operate button, and well, I didn't hit the operate button. Let me hit it again. I'm hitting it there. I'm double bouncing it. If you hit the operate button and you key down, you'll see that there's your 526 watts. And I want to show you something else about that. When we're offline, when you key up, you'll notice on the exciter, on the 100% scale, the PO reading, there's your 92 watts. Now, when I go online to get your 537 watts, the exciter doesn't put out very much at all. It's down around 12% or so of the full rating, according to this meter. Now, on the mid-power rating, if you key down, you're seeing about 30% on the exciter, but there's your 1,000 watts. And then on high power, around 35% or so gets you your 1,500 watts. So as I say, the amplifier is telling the exciter how much power that it needs to get to where it needs to be. And like I say, it follows through to different bands. You can go to 10 and they're 10 megahertz, and there you are at your 1,500 watts, or just whatever band you want. But that's basically how the amplifier works. Thank you very much for watching this presentation. If you need additional information, please go to www.expertlinears.com, or you can give Bob Hardy, W5UQ, a call at 281-259-7877. Again, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, let's get off of that and go back to our program. Where are we? Are you there, John? Hello?
Yes, I'm here. Yes. What would you like?
I see schedule. Oh, stop sharing. There we go.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. All right. Well, if anyone has any questions, let's see. How do I see the questions? Oh, there's one question. What is the price for the Expert 1.5? Well, let me get rid of that. The prices are on our webpage, ExpertLinears.com. And that's on the pricing page. The 1.5, oh, I've got to look and see. Since I'm technical, there we go. The 1.5 is $53.95, and that includes free shipping, by the way. I don't do a lot of the price quoting, so I have to stop and look. Let's see, anybody else got any questions? If not, then, oh yeah, there's 3 questions here. Okay. What's the price? Can you select in between power levels? Yes, you can run the drive up and down with your, run your drive from your transceiver. In other words, drop the drive and the power will go down. What we recommend is that if you're in the, I can't think, the maximum power, the max power, that you should run somewhere around 1,100 to 1,500 watts. Don't go below what that range is set for. If you want to go below 1,100 watts and go to 1,000, then go to mid power. And you do mid power down and don't go down into the low power range, such as 500 and below. That's because the amplifier is linear in the ranges. It has the amplifiers have 3 power ranges, and that way the amplifier will be linear. Not only that, but it also makes the amplifier a lot more efficient temperature wise. So, and several other things. If the amplifier is in max and you drop the power down to 300, 400, 500 watts, well, then not only is it nonlinear, but it's going to heat up faster probably. And there's a possibility that with some things happening that you could transmit some spurious signals of some type because it's nonlinear at that point. Okay, let's go back to the questions. Got a lot more of them here.
The duty cycle. So what
The
is the
duty
duty?
cycle, it's you can get 1500 watts out. I'm sorry, I'm still not awake yet. I can't seem to find the words. 1500 watts is keyed out for the 1.5. The 1.3 key down is a kilowatt. So we use the 1.3 to replace the 1 KFA when we retired it. Let's see, can the amplifier be driven by QRP rigs, 5 to 10 watts? Yes. We have, what's the ELAN? It's like 10 watts, I believe. It's made in Italy. Some people use that. You can typically get somewhere around 800, 900, 1,000 watts out using the lower drive, but it depends on the antenna. It depends on the SWR and so on as to how much power you really get out. But yeah, you can drive it with lower power. I suggest that you don't go any higher than the mid power range to use lower power because it will be nonlinear. Unless you're
Bob, we've got one question coming in on the chat line. Somebody wants to know about functionality with the Flex 6000 family.
They've been very functional. A lot of people are using them. In fact, we have the Flex program built into all of the amplifiers, the 2K, the 1.3, and the 1.5, to where you can select the Flex and the programming. And when you do that, then in the operate position, if you punch one of the arrow buttons at the top, you saw the arrow buttons, they were at the top right hand side of the display. One of those arrow buttons will, either one will bring up a number above the bottom boxes. And that number for max power will start at 060, which means about 60% of, if you have an exciter that is 100 watts, then approximately it'll start at 60 watts. And if you hit the down arrow, the power will start going down until you get to the, actually what I suggest is you take it all the way down to almost 0 and then come up with the power. Come up with the power of the arrow, up arrow, until you see the power stop and come up at a steady rate until you see the power start slowing down and increasing. So back off about 100 watts and you'll be below the knee of the curve or the saturation point. You'll be below the point that would be going into distortion. So you can find that point in max. In mid, there will be the arrows will start at 040 or about 40%, and in low, 020 or about 20%. Again, it's best to drop the arrows using the low down arrow and start with a lower number and then come up. Now you do these arrows for each power level and for each band. And that way the flex will then be set for the proper drive level. The amplifier remembers the drive that it's supposed that it needs for that band. And each time you switch to a different band, different power level, the amplifier will now tell the flex what it needs for drive. That typically is done once, but sometimes things can change and you may have to go back in and touch it up a little bit, but you need to leave your flex set wherever you originally set it. If you set these numbers with the flex at 100 watts, then approximately if say drop the level down to a 035, that would be approximately 35 watts or 35% of the 100. If you started at 50 watts, then it would be approximately 35% of the 50 watts, not of the 100 watts. I hope that's clear and isn't very confusing. The flex works very well. Okay, next question.
There's two
with 110 volts.
Right.
The same power basically as with 240. 220 is what you guys are calling. 110, 220, you're telling your age. No, it's 120 and 240, guys. Anyway, you can change the plug on the power cord, on the AC cord, to 120 volts or to 240, and you'll basically get about the same power out. Maybe a few watts difference, but at 1500 watts, it's insignificant. At 1000 watts, it's insignificant. And at 50 watts, 500 watts, it's basically and still insignificant. So the thing, here's the difference. On 240, you will key down will be about 9 to 10 amps. On 120, key down, the amplifier would be drawing somewhere between 18 and 20 amps, 18, 19 amps, somewhere in that area. Okay, run 1500 watts on 120, yes, and the current draw is about 18 to 20 amps if you have key down. But if you don't do key down, the average power on sideband is going to, or the average drain on AC is about typically 12, 14 amps. So a 15 amp breaker would work if all you're doing is sideband and then regular CW. Key down, it might get probably going up to around 18, 19 amps. Okay, the next question. What is the nature of the exciter power control, ALC? What is the nature of it? Well, the nature, I guess, and that's by Randy Farmer. ALC is automatic level control. In other words, it's automatic drive control. On most transceivers have the conventional ALC. Flex does not have the ALC, and Elecraft does not have the conventional, normal, though typical ALC. They have their own proprietary ALC that will work with their equipment. So on those two, we have the Flex program that is in the amplifier to set the flex. With the Elecraft, you'll have to set the drive yourself, and there are ways there are programs in the Elecraft or settings in the Elecraft where you can set the levels and come back to them again, is what I understand. How much key down time? Well, how much do you want? It's RTTY will be fine for RTTY. I would like to say, though, that when you have the amp in max power and at 1500 watts and running it on FT8 or for RTTY, be kind to it. It's like running your car up around 90 miles an hour for a long time, whatever. Give it a break every once in a while. Slow down and let it cool off a little bit. Just be kind to it, that's all I'm saying. Can you run FT8 for long periods? Yes, but again, ICAS rules, and that's what all of our amplifiers for ham radio, that's intermittent, commercial, and amateur service, is ICAS, FCC rules. And the amplifier under ICAS is supposed to have equal time off to equal time on. But after a while, if your FT8 is somewhat equal off, equal on, equal off, equal on, but somewhere along the line, give it a break. Be nice to your amplifier. Don't just push the heck out of it. It's like jogging all day long to a certain degree. Okay. Is everything demonstrated in the specs fully functional with the Elecraft K3, K3S? The ALC, again, I mentioned that. Ricky Klein asked that question. No, the ALC is not used in Elecraft. You'll have to set the drive levels yourself. For overseas customers, is there support to try to fix amps locally, or may I need to ship it back? No, what you do is you buy from your distributor wherever you are. If you're in England, buy from them. If you're in Italy, buy from Rome, the factory. If you're in Germany, buy from them, and so on. Buy from, in Australia, they have a distributor. If you buy from the United States, which is me, or the Americas, then whoever you buy from warranties the amplifier. And they're the ones responsible for getting it fixed. In my case, you ship it to me, we fix it here. We're just outside of Houston, and I've been fixing them since 2011. So that's a good 10 years. But you should ship it back to the distributor, whoever you buy it from. Does it handle 1.5K and ready? Yes. Again, be kind to it. I mean, don't push the heck out of your amplifiers. Give them time to breathe. Fault protection recovery. Our fault protection used to be somewhere around 0.2 of a second. And the factory did a lot of R&D and came up with being able to drop that down to around 5 or 10 milliseconds. They found that was too fast. So we've now found a happy medium that's in the milliseconds, and it's up around 40, 50 milliseconds, from what I understand. But it's very fast. And there are some cases where people have said, well, we have a SWR fault whenever this happens. Well, there's a couple of things. One is antennas may look good on an antenna analyzer at 1 watt, or may look good on your 100-watt transceiver as SWR, but at 1,000 or 1,500 watts, the antenna may have problems. So that could be the problem. But also there are times where some of the transceivers that have been improved on a lot have found that they have a slight spike at the beginning of the RF. And the first question I get is, well, if that's true, why can't I set the delay, transmit delay? No, you're just delaying the spike. That's all. The spike then can give you an SWR when you key, and sometimes it may and sometimes it may not. But check with your transceiver manufacturer and see if there's a possibility, and maybe there's a problem there. We've had that a few times. At what SWR level does protection kick in for antenna mismatch? Well, the amplifier has, if you're using the antenna tuner, it has 2 SWR monitoring points. One is right out of the bandpass filter, and that's in the box down below on the display screen. That's the one that says SWR. That box cannot get over 2 to 1. Now, I'll come back to that box in a second. The next SWR monitoring device is on the output of the antenna tuner, and it will allow you to do 5 to 1. So even if your antenna is a little over 5 to 1, if the antenna tuner will bring the box down below 2 to 1, then the amplifier is satisfied and it will work. Now back to the box below. 2 to 1, I said, that's because the amplifier's output, which is basically the output of the bandpass filter. These amplifiers are wideband amplifiers. They'll work from 1.8 to 54 megahertz and a little beyond that. And the bandpass filter basically selects the band that you're wanting to pass through and filters out all the others. Okay, so the amplifier needs to see about 50 ohms. Well, 2 to 1 is 100 ohms, and that's as high as the SWR, the monitoring device that's in that bottom box. That's as high as it's going to let it go. At 1.7 to 1, the amplifier will say you're nearing the point of 2 to 1, and it'll beep, 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 like that. At 1.8 to 1, the beep will increase in speed and be beep, 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 and stay that way until 2 to 1, and the amplifier says it's too high SWR. Again, though, the antenna tuner, 5 to 1 will work pretty good at bringing most antennas, a lot of off-center feds, a lot of the antennas that you guys use can typically bring the SWR to below the 1.7 that is needed to keep the amplifier from beeping. Okay, let's see. SO2R is single operator 2 receivers. And our amplifiers are set up that while you're transmitting, like on input 1, that the input 2 transceiver can be listening. The SO2R jack in the back is a PL or an SO238. You can hook up a receive antenna or some other antenna to it, and the transceiver number 2 will be listening. It's best to have some filters, band filters, and to keep the splatter, because while the guy is transmitting on input 1, whatever band you're listening to, and it's best not to listen to the same band. Then that will help keep the splatter down on the receiving transceiver. Now, let's say we hear something on the transceiver number 2, and you get a break on transceiver number 1, and so transceiver number 2 says, I want to transmit. All you do is hit the microphone or key it. If it's CW, hit your key. The amplifier will automatically switch over to input 2, and now you're transmitting from input 2, and input 1 is now listening on the SO2R antenna. That is single operator, 2 receivers. It doesn't mean that you have single operator with 2 receivers and 2 transmitters. You cannot do the transmitting on both at the same time. Noise question was not.
Yeah, there was a question earlier about, can you comment about the noise level of the amplifier?
I'm sorry, what?
Can you comment about the noise level of the amplifier?
I didn't see it. The noise level, we wouldn't, the amplifiers are, if there's any noise at all, it's below the noise floor. Some of the older SPE amplifiers, I mean, way back there, some of the power supplies did develop over a period of time some noise, and when we have some modifications to fix them. Okay, so anyway, people wouldn't be using our amplifiers if the noise was too high. All right.
Bob, Adrian has asked, how often should the air filter be changed or cleaned?
When it gets dirty. Look at it. You can see through the holes. If it's not a black and it's more of a brown or whatever, just take those 2 little screws. Don't lose those screws, by the way. But find a place to put them. Take it off, look at it, wash it, and then blow it out. And that's just do it whenever it needs it. And everybody's is different because every shack has a different level of dust.
Ricky Klein is asking, relative to the 1.5K, what spec parameters change for the 2K?
Well, I'm not quite sure I understand what you're asking. On our website, ExpertLinears.com, you will see all the specs for the 1.5, the 1.3, and the 2K. And there will be many that are very similar for all 3 amplifiers. The 2K, of course, will do 2 kilowatts. Key down, it will do 1 kilowatt. Basically, that's the differences. The 2K FA has been a real workhorse, and we seem to have very, very few problems at all with the 2Ks. People just love those. And they have 6 antenna outputs, by the way. The 1.3 and 1.5 have 4 antennas. The 2K has 6 antennas, but of those antennas, the 1.3 and 1.5, you can only choose any 2 of 4 on any band. In other words, you can have 1 and 2 on 80, and 2 and 3 on 40, and 3 and 4 on 20, or whatever, any mixture. The 2K has, you can manage 3 of the 6. Active temperature readout, yes, there's an active temperature readout on the bottom right-hand corner of the display, and the 2K will get up to about 70, 75 degrees centigrade before it will drop down to the next level. If it's on max, it'll drop to mid. If it's not satisfied, it'll drop to low. If that's not satisfied, it will go to standby. The 1.3 and the 1.5 have a little different temperature ranges. The 1.5 Series 2 now will do 105 degrees centigrade, which is over boiling. It will do 105 degrees centigrade, then drop down to the next lower, and so on. The 1.3 is still, I think it's around 75 degrees centigrade.
Going back a second, the comment, the earlier question about noise level, they weren't talking about RF noise. We're talking about fan noise. How loud is the unit?
Oh, of course. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Well, obviously there's going to be some fan noise. Oh, hi, San. Hang on in there. I know San Hudson's our next question. He's a good friend of mine. And then Bob Farmer. Anyway, the fan noise, you've got to have some fan noise because there's heat that's got to be moved out. But our fans are not as loud or as high as the typical tube type amplifiers that used to be used. Of course, there's going to be some. Now, how do I tell you about what is the level? Well, there are some dB levels. I don't have them right now that I can tell you. It seems to me like they're around 30 something dB. Anyway, I shouldn't get into that. The point is it depends on your hearing. If a guy can hear a pin drop in a dance hall, then yes, the fans are going to be loud. If not, if it's typical like most of us and we don't hear that, then the fans will be noticeable, but you have to have some fans. You can't have one without the other. Okay.
That would be a real knack to have hear a pin drop in the dance hall. I really like that.
Well, my wife could hear a pin drop in the dance hall. I mean, she could hear anything just about. And I have her come in sometimes and listen to the amplifiers. I'll say, do you think those are loud? And she's gotten to be pretty good to help me on that. She'll say, yeah, I think those are a little loud. Well, then I change the fans out. Jackson Dunlap, what's the final transistor? Our amplifiers are 100% solid state, and the 1.5 has a 1K80 transistor. It's a 1800 watt transistor. The 1.3 has a 1K50, which is a 1500 watt transistor. And the 2Ks have 6 MRF 151Gs. And these are like 400 watts. So 6 times 400 gives you about 2,400 or a little over 2,000 watts. Hello, Sam. Bob, what's the most common problem you've had to fix over the years? The most common problem is that the amplifiers broke. And that's about it. I'm just trying to be funny, Sam. Oh, our 7P8 trip in 2014, all 3 amps did well and none overheated with constant use up to 20 hours a day. Thank you, Sam. We have lots of DXpeditions that tell us our amplifiers are very light, very flexible and do very good. And they put them on beacon use and all kinds of things. The most common problem, I'll go back to that. Typically, if we have common problems, the factory will come up with a fix and we'll solve that problem. And the chances are we move to another one. But I'd say that right now, the most common problem is where people have abused their amplifiers, or they maybe haven't abused them, but some reason or another, something happened cause the amplifier to go out. And so that seems to be, we work with them and we try to figure what's going on. And one of the things I find is, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. It's got to be the amplifier. Well, it could be, and it could be that nothing is whatever. These problems aren't all cookie cut. They're not all the same thing. So it all depends. We have to go in and scientifically determine what happened and what's going on with them. But our amplifiers have been, oh man, I had more people come by the booths when we were doing booths, by the way, before COVID. And they'd say, I just wanted to drop by and say, hi, I love my amplifier. Anyway, nice talking with you, Sam. Well, talking at you. Bob Farmer. Hello, Bob. W9BF. Let's see. I had a port issue with a USB port compromised by EMP. Anything in the works to better protect the linear from damage to USB port voltage spikes? The best way is to protect your amplifier is to use good common grounding. In other words, let me give you an example. If you took during a lightning storm and you put a stake in the ground, it could be a 1-foot-long stake, a 2-foot-long stake, or whatever, a copper rod, and a 20 feet over, put another one, and then run wires to a sensitive voltmeter. You could see activity on that voltmeter, probably with storms with lightning, as much as 30 miles away. That has been documented by people that have done storm checking for lightning and so on. Now, if we ran a very small wire, even a number 22, 23, 24, 25 gauge wire between those two stakes 20 feet apart, the activity on the meter would go down to almost nothing. In other words, we would have eliminated the difference of potential between the two ground rods. So if you have a computer that is plugged in, and you have an amplifier that is plugged in, and you have a transceiver that is plugged in, and so on, and they are not all commonly grounded, it's best to have a station ground and take them individually to that station ground. If they are not grounded together, then you'll have a difference of potential between the two units. And that difference of potential could be lightning, EMP, it could be lots of things. But that right there helps. Many of us make our shacks, we set the transceiver down, we set the amplifier down, and so on in the computer, and we don't have a common ground, and we're asking for it. Bob also told me about a unit that he bought that was a USB protection unit, and I don't have the information here, but he hooked up his amplifier after that. He hooked it all up through this USB protection unit. Okay, let's go to what is the availability and lead time at the present. It varies, and that's a question for my wife. Let me find the sheet here. Okay, right now we're doing the 1.5 and 1.3 is, oh shoot, this is old, it says April, May. I think it's May, June, or June, July. If you bought right now, the 1.3, 1.5 would be June, July. The 2K is going to be a little longer than that. The 2K had some COVID domino effects, and that some of the part suppliers had found COVID people in their employ, so they had to shut down. And so we're waiting for some parts. So that'd be more like July or August for 2Ks. And we're sorry about that, but we can't help the COVID stuff. Oh yeah, this chameleon says my 2K is about 60 dB based on my Apple Watch. I like that. That's pretty good. He says also my Boise Noise canceling headphones. I don't hear the fans at all. Thank you, Pete. That's nice. Barry Isaac says, in the future, is there a possibility that the amplifiers will have an external control panel available which would allow them to be placed away from the operating position? Well, you have now the remote control, and that's the term 2K for the 2K, term 1.5 for the 1.5K, and term 1.3. They're the remote controls you can put on your computer, and you can set the amplifier in another part of the house. A lot of people do, down on the floor below your camera, what do you call it, desk, and so on. Now, I have been really pushing hard for the factory to have a LAN internet connection. And I think that I finally caught their attention, and they may be coming out with something. I think it's in research and development. They may be coming out so you don't have to have the term program. You can connect your amplifier directly up to LAN or internet. Don't hold me on to that, because I don't know that for sure, but I've really been working trying to get that done. Barry says, hi, Bob, great to see you again. When was the latest firmware update for the 1.5? Well, hi, Barry. Let's see, that would have been April 23rd, 2021. That's the latest one. And it's known as, in Europe, they do day, month, year. So it's the 23rd, 2304 being April, 21-A. And then it'll be / something, but it depends on what amplifier it's on as to what the / is. Anyway, that's the latest. I have it. If you want to send me an email, I'll send that to you. It's best though if you're in the United States or the Americas to send to me. But if you're in another part of the world, then contact the factory or your distributor. Excuse me, I'm getting a little hoarse. All station and house grounds should be bonded. Oh, I'm glad you said that, Stephen Smith. Absolutely. And I forgot to say that earlier. That's a good, very, very good point, and something I've been trying to get people to understand. You have cable coming in, and that has a ground. You have a telephone line coming in, and it has a ground. You have power lines coming in, and it has a ground. You have a tower, and it has a ground. You have your ham equipment, and it has a ground. All of these grounds should be tied together, and they should be with good size flat material like copper strap or braid. But if you've got just wire, round wire, that's fine. At least there's a connection. It's better to have something than to not have anything, because in between all those is going to be differences of potential. And whenever lightning comes along, it's going to difference of potential. It can very easily go very high. So ground them together. One more thing on that. If you have a transceiver and an amplifier and a computer on your desk, for example, and all other different equipment, don't daisy chain them. Because if I have a transceiver hooked up to another transceiver, and then say transceiver 1's hooked up to transceiver 2, and transceiver 2 goes to the station ground, then if something comes out on transceiver 1, it's going to go through transceiver 2 to get the ground, and we'll take them both out. You run each individual piece of equipment to ground separately, and that's your station ground. Then run that ground to your common ground. Okay, Marty Lane, how are you, buddy? Haven't talked to you in a long time. He says, I found one thing better than SPE 1.5K. That's 2 SPEs. By the way, Marty, you got my initials for your call. OH2BH, Bob Hardy. Roger Miller.
We've got one question coming in on the chat line. We asked, how does the pure signal output on the 1.5K Series 2 work?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear all that.
Question is, how does the pure signal output on the 1.5K Series 2 work?
Oh, okay. We have a tap on the 1.5 that is in the bandpass, right at the output of the bandpass filter, that goes to the connector on the back, which is a gold connector. It's an SMA, Sugar Mike Alpha. That connector has the sample of the RF, and it's about 50 dB down. In other words, it's pretty low. That is hooked up to a transceiver that has the pure signal capabilities, such as the ANAN, I believe it is. And the transceiver has all the circuitry in it to use that tap to pre-distort the signal so that it improves the signal. It may not make sense, but if you're familiar with FM modulation of FM stations, back when we had pre-distortion, the audio going into the FM transmitter, commercial FM transmitter, was pre-distorted so that when it came out at a better signal to noise ratio. So this is a similar type thing, and that it sees the transceiver with the monitoring equipment for giving the pure signal will see the sample signal out of the bandpass filter and sees what it needs to do to pre-distort to improve that. That's how you can get down to about 50 or 60 dB down on the distortion. So let's see. I clean my air filter. Roger Miller says he cleans his 1.3 once every 1 to 2 months with usage of about 8 hours a day. Yeah, but again, it depends on how your wife keeps your rig room clean. Depends on how much dust is in there. Ron Ocho wants to know, Ocho, my TS2000 finals blew twice when I connected the ALC of my AL8B. AL80B amp. I was running single sideband. I'm sorry, you're going to have to talk to the TS2000 people. I can't tell you. I have no idea. Well, I have an idea, but I'd better not. I'm just talking about expert linears. And we have one last question here, and I didn't. Oh, I've got something I've got to finish up with here, though, John. And it's really
Thank you. That's fine.
Do I have time for this last question, or should I?
Go right ahead.
Ricky Klein says, when connected to a computer for remote operation, are all the amplifier control panel functions available? Yes. You have on the term programs of any of the amplifiers, including the 1K, by the way, all of the push buttons on the front and the display is the same, basically visible on this program. You have all the same buttons and same display.
Okay, one last quick.
Finish up with what you wanted to do, Bob.
Yes, exactly.
Go. I'm sorry.
Just finish up with what you want to do.
No, we don't have time for the last question. Do what you need to do.
Oh, okay.
Just
I got it.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to tell you, where's John?
Right. I'm here.
Here's John. I wanted to tell you and everybody, I had a dream the other night. I dreamed that I died and went to heaven.
Uh-oh.
Peter was showing me around, and he showed me all the nice amenities of heaven. And then finally he wrapped up, I'm going to shorten this down. Finally, he wrapped up by taking me to where he says, now this is where you're going to be the rest of your time in heaven. And I looked in there and I said, oh, and there's this lady there. He says, yeah. And I said, but wait a minute, that lady, she's so ugly, she'd make a train take a dirt road.
Oops.
I said, what's the deal with this lady? And he said, she's your companion. I said, you're kidding. No, she's going to be your companion for the whole time you're here. And about that time, I looked up and looked across heaven, and I saw you over there, John. You were way over there, and you had Wonder Woman.
Uh-oh.
I mean, well, she looked like Wonder Woman anyway. And I'm saying, wait a minute, what happened here? How come I get this ugly looking lady and John gets this Wonder Woman? And St. Peter says, well, Wonder Woman has to pay for her sins too.
Gee, thanks, Bob. You got even.
You look at woman because I had to pay for my sins. I think I forgot to say that. I got in a rush.
We got that. It's great.
Thank you, people, and it's fun. I had some more demonstrations. I'm going to take them and put them on my website later this week, and so they'll all be there.
Oh, perfect. Bob, you did a fantastic job today. You just held forth with a half an hour straight of just, honest, open forum to talk. That's exactly what we're trying to accomplish with this today. So thanks for being on time. Thanks for handling it all with the professionalism that you are. We just really enjoyed having you today. You got a great product.
Okay. Thank you very much, John. And Rich, thank you. Rich.
It is Rich, you bet. You enjoy the rest of your weekend. It's fantastic. And hang around if you want. You're more than welcome to just, unless you got stuff to do, you can just hang around and listen to the rest of the presentations if you want to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. You guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
You guys have fun.